Tales of the Narrow Gauge, Episode 4, Mid-Sodor Celebration. The big day had finally arrived. It was 140 years since the Mid-Sodor Railway had opened. 5 of the engines who now ran on the Skarloey Railway used to work on the old line before it was shut down, and many people had flocked from all over Sodor and the mainland to see the engines. The engines had spent their morning being interviewed by the railway historian, who had come to write a book about them. "Yes," said Duke, "I was left in that shed for many years, abandoned and alone. I was actually found by a tram engine called Toby who works on the standard gauge line. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for Duke, if he hadn't stopped me from falling off the cliff all those years ago on the old line. I only ended up replacing my funnel after I was involved in an accident with some trucks. The slates cracked my old funnel, so I got a new one, but it has made me stand out among the other engines. An engine who turned into a generator and then back into an engine. Yep, that's me." "Okay," said the historian, "I think I've got enough now to write my book about. Thank you all, and have a nice day." A very special train had been arranged for the afternoon. It was to be a parade. Duke would go first with a coach filled with the most important people. Then Bertram, Sir Handel and Peter Sam would all follow with their trains filled with all the other passengers. Finally, Smudger would be at the back with a boxcar filled with supplies and mechanics in case of an emergency. First, the regular passengers climbed into their coaches. Then the engines had to move backwards and let Duke in so that he could collect the VIPs. All of the other narrow gauge engines had arrived and were waiting to watch the train leave. As well as the narrow gauge engines, some of the other mainline engines had been invited to come and watch. Then Gordon pulled in with the coach filled with Duke's important passengers. Out of the coach stepped Sir Topham Hatt, the other railway controllers, and a small crowd of other people, including the Earl of Sodor. They clambered into Duke's coach. Just then everyone heard a strange whirring sound. It was Harold the helicopter. "I've just completed my fly-around," he said. "All's well and the line's clear. Whenever you're ready." Then Tiger Moth swooped through the sky. "That's the signal," said Duke, and as he did the guard blew his whistle. "Let's get moving," said the engines, and they began to run. The engines paraded through the Sodor countryside. "You've done a fine job with all this, Peregrine," said the Fat Controller. "Yes," agreed Lord Harry Boraine. "I hope you'll be around to plan the party when my railway turns 140. People stood on the platforms waving as the engines passed. After a long trip, the parade pulled into the top station. The Fat Controller and everyone else thanked the engines. Once everyone had disembarked, they went to the station's yards. The engines were all talking when Tiger Moth flew in. "Big news," he said. "My air show was a great success." "Is that all you have to say?" sneered Sir Handel. "Of course not," laughed Tiger Moth. "All the passengers say that they had a wonderful time and they would like to come back to this railway and see all the other engines. Mr. Percival says the business will be booming here for the foreseeable future." "Well, that's great," said Smudger. "Yes, it is," said the Thin Controller as he arrived. "Thank you all for making this such a wonderful day. I know that your old line meant a lot to all of you, and holding an anniversary celebration like this is the best way that we can mark its birthday and the significant impact that it had on the railways of Sodor. I know that some of you will have hoped that the day would be a bit more exciting than it was. But today we have set out to do something and have achieved it. Memorialising the Mid-Sodor Railway." "Yes, indeed," agreed Duke, and all the other engines agreed too. "Here's to 140 years," they all said.